Let's talk in this video about one of the hottest topics in enterprise networking today, and that is SD-WAN, or Software-Defined Wide Area Networking. But before we really dive into SD-WAN, let's take a little trip down memory lane. Back in the old days, and I'm talking about when I started working with WAN connections, we had dedicated leased lines. We had T1s, frame relay circuits, everything connected back to a single location, like a company headquarters, or in my case, a main university campus. It was a classic hub and spoke topology. And if you wanted to get out to the internet, your traffic had to go through that central site first, and then it would go out to the internet. And partly that was for security, but partly that was because that's where the applications lived. The email servers, the file storage, the databases. But here's the thing, the world has changed a lot since then, and high-speed internet connections, they became much more widely available, they became much more economical, and suddenly applications that we need for business, they're not all sitting at the data center back at the headquarters. They're in the cloud. We have things like Microsoft 365, Salesforce, AWS services, Dropbox, you name it. So why, for example, should a branch office in Denver send its Microsoft Teams traffic all the way back to the headquarters in Atlanta, only to then go out to the internet? That's called traffic backhauling, and it is incredibly inefficient. So here's where SD-WAN comes in. It's really a game changer. With SD-WAN, it doesn't really matter what kind of connections you have at your different sites. One location might have MPLS, another site might have a cable modem, maybe another remote site has LTE or even satellite. SD-WAN abstracts all that complexity away. Think of it this way. You've got an underlay network. That's how things are physically interconnected. And that might be really messy. It might use different carriers, different technologies. But SD-WAN lets us build an overlay network on top of that. And an overlay network, that's a logical topology that looks however we want it to look. What we do is use encrypted tunnels to interconnect our routers. So we might have a couple of routers that are physically 5 hops away, but they look like they're adjacent because we've got an encrypted tunnel interconnecting those routers through all of these various technologies. And not only does SD-WAN allow us to do that, SD-WAN is smart about where the traffic goes. Cloud-bound traffic, it can go directly to the cloud. No more backhauling. Plus, you can manage everything from a centralized console rather than having to log into each router and configure it individually. Now, let's look at some of the components that make up Cisco's SD-WAN solution, and these are definitely terms I want you to remember. At the management layer, we have vManage. This is our graphical interface for configuring and monitoring the SD-WAN. This is where we're going to spend most of our time as an administrator. Next is vBond. That's the orchestrator. Imagine this scenario. Let's say that we buy a new router. We pre-configure it using vManage. Then we have Cisco ship it to a remote office. And when it arrives at that remote office, someone plugs it in and that device phones home. It finds vBond. It automatically downloads its configuration. That's called zero-touch provisioning. No network engineer is going to be required to be on site at that remote location. Then there's vSmart. And I like to think of this like the Borg collective from Star Trek: The Next Generation. If you're a Star Trek fan, you might remember the Borg had a hive mind. If one drone learned something, they all knew it instantly. That's sort of like vSmart. It runs the Overlay Management Protocol, or OMP, and it sees the big picture. Instead of each router making an independent routing decision, vSmart coordinates everything centrally. And finally, at the data plane, we have our edge devices. vEdge routers, those come from Cisco's acquisition of Viptela, and cEdge routers, those are Cisco IOS XE devices running SD-WAN software. And these edge devices, they can sit at our branch locations and actually forward traffic. And that is the foundation of SD-WAN. We've talked about the why, the what, and the key components. And in our next video, we'll actually log into a live SD-WAN environment and explore the vManage interface.